when I break down a story, I look at a story as music. There was a scene in my Daredevil run with Kevin Smith. I believe it was after Karen Page sort of met her terrible demise, where Daredevil for a second really contemplated suicide, and I think I broke down those pages into like 24 panel grids or something. They were very, very tiny panels, but each one sort of had a rhythm to it. And by composing the panels in that sort of a small configuration, I also wanted to give this sense of prison bars, imprisonment, and very tight and claustrophobic surroundings. And what do you do? Time's running out. Life stinks. I got to get out of here. And what's the only way out? I got this gun at my feet. So those are the kind of things I try to add to the story, but ultimately I run instinctually when it comes to storytelling. I just do what I feel is right for the moment. My working relationship with Kevin Smith was probably one of the, I think to this day, it is the best collaboration I ever had with anybody. When Kevin was first approached by us to do this, he immediately said, yeah, sounds like a great idea. And we were all gung-ho, and then it was like, the days were passing, and we weren't getting the scripts from Kevin. Kevin, where are the scripts? And it took a call finally from my business partner at that time, Jimmy Palmiotti, to Kevin to say, dude, what the hell's wrong with you? Let's get this script and let's do this. And it took me a couple of months to realize that the fear that Kevin was feeling. What if he writes a clunker? And people are going to perceive it in a multitude of terribly, horrifically negative ways. The movie industry is going to say, oh, look, he couldn't play in that little sandbox. And the people in the little sandbox are going to be like, oh, look at this big guy. He just couldn't cut it in our world. And the first story, the first issue of Daredevil that he wrote it in screenplay format. I just said, dude, just write it. Let me break it down for you. By about issue 4 and issue 5, Kevin nailed it. Karen Page's death, that was... That was a really interesting moment because Kevin and I had discussed having that happen. At this point, the Karen Page character had been through so much stuff. I mean, anybody who's familiar with Frank Miller's run, and I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but you could tell that character has been run through the mill. She will never be embraced by Mothers of America. So we felt, the character was sort of damaged to begin with. And we really wanted to have, there was a very poignant scene in Kevin's story where Karen's death could be very, very important to the ongoing saga of Daredevil. It had to be a big secret. And we knew that if we went out there and said there's a major death in Daredevil number 5, our sales would have gone through the roof. But we just said, you know what? Let's give the fans a real surprise. Let's not advertise this ahead of time. Let's just throw it out there and see what happens. So that was the first thing. It was going to be a big surprise, and we kept it a secret all the way until the book finally saw print. And number 2, we wanted it to be significant. So she had to die in a way that dead is dead. She's not coming back. Karen Page is not coming back to the Daredevil universe. And to this day, it's been pretty much upheld because of the fact that it was a significant death in the Marvel Universe. See, so it was Jimmy, it was myself, there was Ralph, there was Kevin, and Jimmy's girlfriend, Amanda Conner, who's also an artist, all contributed ideas at that point to make this scene. So it took about 5 people to sort of throw in little ideas here and there, and then Kevin took all that stuff and sewed it together into this incredible scene. When Kevin sent me the final script, I called him up and I said, okay, I'm a woman. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I cried. He's like, you are a woman. As editor-in-chief of Marvel right now, I'm responsible for a lot of the look, a lot of the way the books are, the overall look of the coloring, the kind of artists we hire, more importantly, the kind of writers that we look for, the way we tell our stories, and then the other part of this job, which I really wanted to sort of get a hold of. What made Marvel special was that Marvel had a public face when Stan Lee was here. Okay, and in no way, by the way, am I ever comparing myself to Stan Lee, because Stan Lee's a mutant. Okay, I just want you to know that, because he does have a superpower, and Stan's superpower is that if you ever met Stan, okay, you can meet him for 10 seconds, and he'll say, "Hey, how you doing?" Put a hand on your shoulder, and you feel like you've known him forever. Stan had that amazing mutant power. I don't have that, but what I do have is I have the internet at my disposal, and I have a big mouth. and I'm very opinionated. At Marvel, we're sort of like the hot-blooded Latin family. We're the Sicilians, you know what I mean? We're out there, and we're yelling at each other, and DC is very waspy. They're very proper, you know, they're very dynasty, so to speak. And that's really the big difference between the two companies. And that was the other thing that I sort of wanted to reinstate, that there was this sort of like ridiculous detente between DC and Marvel for like the last few years, where they were doing crossovers, and they were doing this thing called amalgam, where they put their characters together, and it was like, oh God, it bored me to death. And I remember what was cool when I was growing up was the fact that it was DC or Marvel, man. You belonged to one gang or another. It's healthy to have kids at the store or at the bookstore, or at the comic shop, wherever it may be, talking about it, you know, and disliking one company or another or whatever, but they're buying everybody's books. But the important thing that matters, they're passionate about something. And if it's passionate about loving Marvel or not loving Marvel, that's great, you know, because to me, being passive is just death.